Hey, welcome to the Inner Circle podcast, where growth minded leaders come together to build better businesses and better lives. I'm your host, Hector Alvarado. Here, we don't do theory, we share real lessons, real systems, and real strategies you can use right away. This is a community for people committed to growth, impact, and supporting each other on the journey. You're in the right room, my friends. Let's get started. Welcome everybody to another of our Inner Circle calls, and welcome to the group for week 4 of the AI integration playbook. And this is our final session. We finally made it here. Over the past 3 weeks, we've explored how to identify opportunities, as we talked about. We've built team buy-in. We talked about how do you take it to your team so that they can get behind it. And we launched some effective pilots. Last week, we showed you some tools. We got some test time in. People were playing around with the different available AI tools. And now it's time to bring it all together and establish a sustainable framework for AI in your organization. Now, if you've seen team members experimenting with various AI tools, perhaps, without clear guidelines, you're not alone. This is common. This uncoordinated approach is often called shadow AI, and it can lead to data privacy risks, inefficiencies, unmeasurable ROIs, and a budget creep. These are the things that today we're going to prevent for future build-outs and future growth, right? We want to build a true AI operating system within your companies, and one that has a governance framework. One that enables innovation without chaos, and that it sets clear standards for consistency and creates process to make AI sustainable for years to come. Because as we told you, and I hope a lot of you here now have realized, AI is not going to be a fad that's going to come and go. Like this is like the internet of the late 90s, where maybe people hesitated. Well, we can't hesitate. We have to jump in and learn. But in order to make this a core function, it requires an operating system, just like anything else within your business. So to effectively integrate AI, you need to be structured in your approach. So think of it as building a robust operating system for AI initiatives. And this system will need to be comprised of several key components. And first, it's the AI governance framework. And this is defining who makes decisions about AI tools and strategy in your companies today. And secondly, standardizing your AI tech stack. And I know we've talked about this before, but it's important that we understand who and what makes the selection process within your tech stack tools. And then AI request process. You must define a clear path for your team to propose and pilot new tools, because as you've learned, AI is innovative and it will be changing almost weekly. And so if we don't stay consistent in knowing who gets to pick what makes the cut, and who actually has the authority or autonomy to make requests, well, then we're all going to be pulled in different directions. And that's when you get chaos. That's when you get inefficiencies. That's when you get what we're calling shadow AI, okay, which is essentially like the reverse of what you want. Now, there are other components of this framework that must be reviewed and understood. And the fourth one is data privacy and security protocols. You must ensure that it is safe and compliant with your data, right? The use of AI cannot just be something that you gamble with. It has to follow a governance rule. You must also create an ROI dashboard. We've talked about this for the previous weeks, but you cannot just go play with AI, without understanding what you're improving. What is the return on your investment, from the time spent to the training on that new tool, plus the cost of that tool. In the one that nobody talks about, but we keep reminding everyone, is the cost of implementation, because there is a drag on that implementation. There is a learning curve that costs you real money, and you have to be able to quantify that cost so that you can plan out your return. And of course, we want to make sure that there is a review rhythm, regularly assessing and optimizing your AI tools, because they're going to be changing monthly, quarterly, yearly. We're just in the very beginning of this, and we know that the best is yet to come. So we must have a rhythm to audit. We must have a rhythm to assess if those tools are the right ones for our company. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today. And so first, let's jump into defining your AI governance framework and who decides what. An effective governance isn't about stifling innovation. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. Just because you're putting rules behind it doesn't mean that you're going to prevent people from innovating. It's about channeling productivity. We need to establish 3 levels of AI decision making. The first one is leadership. That's you. If you're the business unit leader or the owner of your company, your role is to set the overall AI budget and strategy. It's to approve new tools and to have a certain cost threshold. You need to define the data private policies, and you need to allocate resources. You essentially set the direction and ensure that there's governance in your business, but you avoid micromanaging every tool request. Okay? It's clear that it's not you that will be going to determine the actual tool, and it's not you that's going to be micromanaging. You are responsible for the strategy and budget and framework. That's what the leadership is accountable for. And then there's the second level, which is the actual AI champions or the task force. This is a team, as we talked about before, that ideally forms and evaluates new tools. They make the requests, they run pilots, they monitor AI usage and the ROI. And of course, they're the ones that train on these approved tools. They implement, evaluate, and optimize. They're your bridge between leadership and your full wider organization. That's the second level. And the third is that third level, that's everyone. That's the team members who can request new tools through the defined process by going to the task force, right? They are the ones that will also be sharing learnings and maybe even making suggestions. They're key because their responsibility is to follow governance and avoid using unapproved tools, because those are your risk mitigation. Because if you don't have these, that's where sensitive data could leak. That's where the wrong tools being installed could create some really bad outcomes for organizations. And so we want to make sure that that level 3 is clear about what they can and what they cannot do. Okay, that's your first level, is governance. Then we have to standardize. We have to ensure that the tech stack is quality over quantity. Because if we don't have standards, you end up with a mixed, chaotic tools, duplicating efforts, and mixed opportunities for shared learnings, right? Everybody just runs on their own lanes, and then all of a sudden you're zigzagging and it becomes completely inefficient. So you want to standardize 3 to 5 core tools, ideally 1 per major function. So 1 major AI tool for sales and marketing, 1 for operations, 1 for finance, 1 for admin, so that you get your best bang from that AI tool. This creates a very clear approved stack that everyone understands, and it eliminates surprises and fostering, mixed messages. Now, as we talked about building that request process, because we want to encourage innovation, but we want to prevent shadow AI. That's the goal, right? So understanding, well, how does this work? What should we do here when this happens? When a team member finds a new and exciting tool, you want to encourage their initiative. You want to encourage their innovation. You don't want to create bottleneck or force them into shadow AI. So you want a clear, fast approval process. That's the key. Is that it has to be fast, clear, simple. Okay. So let's put this into context. Team member submits a request. That could be a documented request or an email template that you capture. Why? What's the intended case study or case tool? What problem does it solve? What's the expected ROI, time or cost saved? And what company data would be used? And then you give a pilot plan in that request. That's for you, the individual, to submit. The task force reviews this request, and within 1 week, they assess if this is to be approved for the group or not. Because they'll be able to run, if it's approved, they jump now into test mode. And they would be the ones that would validate it within 30 days if there are any privacy concerns, if the ROI is justified, if it can actually improve the set out obstacles that the team commented or requested. And then once all of that's done, once they've run their 30-day pilot, they can move forward to approve it and decide to scale it, which means that they approved it for everybody. Again, they decide that we need more time to optimize, or they're the ones that decide to kill it and completely end that engagement. This process is critical because, again, the term here is that it prevents shadow AI, but it still encourages innovation and ensures that data is protected, which lead us into that privacy component, right? And this is where one of the biggest concerns that you'll hear from many people is about AI data security. And your team needs a clear, simple policy. So the golden rule here is, if in doubt, don't put it in. Don't upload it. Don't download it. Don't install it. It's just like you would for any other security virus protection. It's the same concept, right? But you must know that there has to be an approved form. If there isn't a policy behind it, you're exposing a lot of your data to potentially high risk. So, what does this mean? You want to make sure that you have approved AI tools, a marketing component, a drafting component, and general business processes. So you have to be able to understand what AI is approved for. That's what I'm trying to say here is, do not go and be vague, but say, look, AI is for this. AI is for summarizing emails. AI is for drafting content. AI is for general internal business processes, but it is not for client confidential information. It is not for employee personal data, payroll, performance reviews, health reviews. It is not for legal documents, unless we have approved this to be a legal AI tool. If the company has not approved it to be that, do not use it in that manner. And do not use it if you have signed an NDA, which is the non-disclosure agreement. So this is critical that everybody knows that rule. So as a general statement, the rule here is, before putting anything into an AI tool, ask yourself, would I be comfortable if this appeared in a competitor's output? And if no, don't use AI for it. Quite simple. If it's maybe, well, then maybe you should take it to the task force that you've established to get their blessing. But if it's yes, then you may proceed. Again, all of it within the framework that allows us to have boundaries, and that we can all understand when we need to stay inside those boundaries. Now, the fifth thing that we talked about as our operating framework here is to ensure we have tracking and that we understand the ROI. So that's measuring your AI tools to truly understand if they're delivering value. Because if you're not tracking it and you're just simply paying the fees and paying for people to continue to learn and play with the tools, well, then what are you gaining? So you have to make sure that you have a dashboard. And what I mean by this is having KPIs that are specific to AI into your weekly dashboards that you are reviewing now every single week. We talked about that way back about establishing KPIs in your business. So establish now AI KPIs into your measurable boards, your weekly board reviews. And some of these are, to put into perspective, is measure your hours saved per month. Ask your users, how many hours per week did the tool actually save you? And then capture that data. What about dollars saved as a KPI? Make sure that you're capturing, in fact, how much this is actually saving your company. And update this dashboard weekly, monthly at a minimum. Because if you don't do that, again, what you're going to miss out on is the true validation of the tool. And now, the sixth thing is to actually perform the audit. Do a 90-day operating audit on this. Review the dashboard, review your wins every quarter, and maybe have within that structure a tool request review format. Have them all, ready for you to review once a quarter and say, all right, guys, in this next quarter, we're now going to approve any new testing for new tools that people have recommended. And that's when you approve for the task force to go play, go optimize, go learn, and then finally then go implement. But at least now you get into a consistent rhythm, and that they're not just throwing you requests every week and you're having to validate that, and then you're pulled into looking at these AI projects, kind of like chasing the squirrel or the new shiny object. But you have a housing platform that you say, all right, we're going to have them here, we're going to shelve them, and we're going to see them every 90 days. And every 90 days, we are going to validate what we're currently using. And if they're not working, we're also going to look at the improvement suggestions that the teams have been making, and we'll pick the next round of pilots or testing tools, and we're going to let the task force go to town so that you have consistency now built into your team to get, again, the right momentums built out. And this will define your strategic planning. It will make sure that you avoid being reactive, but it'll really develop a roadmap that will set you up for success, because this will clearly outline your primary focuses, your expected outcomes, and of course, your budgets. You're going to want to make sure that you understand and stay within a budget framework. So again, this is how we wrap up the AI integration program all in a nutshell. And it is to bring this last component to your companies. And it is making sure that you have now an operating system for your AI processes. So your action plans this week, it's quite simple, but it's the steps that we just talked about. It is defining who has decision authority in your teams. Standardize your AI stack. So this one could be a bit more comprehensive and a bit more clunky, but list out all of your current AI tools, identify any duplicates, select 3 to 5 core tools, and standardize on them. And cancel the ones that you're not using because they're duplicates or they just don't give you the return. Build your request process so that you have a standardized request system. Create a simple template or tool to make these requests, and assign your task force. You have to have a task force in your team. You cannot be the task force, business unit leader, or owner in this call. It shouldn't be you. You could be part of the task force, but it should not just be on your shoulders as you progress in this AI journey. Okay. You also need to make sure that you write your data privacy policy. You must define what data is approved and not approved for AI use, and establish that test and that rule of thumb for your company, because only you know what that is. It's because you know what applications AI will be used for. You need to create your KPIs and plug them into a dashboard, and you have to create your quarterly rhythm to make sure that you have consistency and audit within your operating system for your AI tools. So congratulations for all of you that have been here for the past 4 weeks. You've completed the AI integration playbook 4-part series. You now have the foundation for a sustainable AI strategy. You're pioneers in this, because I can tell you there aren't many that are doing this. We were talking about it before the call, and there's several out there that are still quite looking at this as like the worst thing that's happening in business. Some people are scared, others don't want to try it, etc. And so you've jumped in, you've tested the tools with us last week. We've given you the framework, and you're ready to run with a strategic approach that will allow you to measure your ROI, to have a trained team, to have governing in place to prevent chaos, and to have a strategic roadmap that will let you continue to evolve as AI evolves. And this integration isn't a project. I want you to remember that. It's a fundamental capability of what will define how you operate within AI, because it's not going away. So own it, grow it, and let it become your competitive advantage. All right. Now, in closing, I will tell you that next week, I'm super excited to announce our guest. I actually just talked to him this week. I've got him locked up for next Thursday, so you can't miss Mr. Ryan Kononov. He is an IT specialist, a guru out of Calgary. Or sorry, not out of Calgary. He's got lots of companies that help in companies in Calgary, but he's out of British Columbia. And he has been very much on the cutting edge of AI. And so we're excited that he's going to be joining us next Thursday. So I'll pass it back to you, Alan, and we'll go around the room with some AI questions here.
I have to think that there's going to be some AI questions that are on the room. I got some, but boy, you really made this one technical. Now, this subject went from fun to technical. Governance, there's governance, and you gotta create some standards, and you gotta track it. And I'm like,
yeah, it's the
what?
boring stuff of
But
business,
I
Alan. It's
missed.
the
I think.
stuff that actually makes you or
Oh,
saves you money.
yeah, come on, dude, keep it sexy, would you? That sounded really weird in a call with all men on it.
Oh
But anyway,
man,
strange. Anyway, now wasn't there
it's
there was
interesting, but
governance, there was stand. Oh, so there was governance, there was standards, there was tracking, but wasn't there six
yeah,
things?
so
Can you run through those just to name those six again?
yeah, so yeah, for sure. It's defining your authority,
Okay.
right? Starts with authority, making sure you have who can do what. And then it's making sure that you standardize your AI stack. You build a request process. You write your privacy policy. You create KPIs that will go into your dashboard. And you set up your quarterly audit reviews of your AI tools.
Yeah,
It's the
good stuff.
boring stuff that keeps you lean, productive, and profitable.
My favorite word. But isn't it always, it's always the boring stuff that counts. It's the boring stuff that makes a business successful. It's the boring stuff that creates the profit. So God bless you for bringing the boring stuff today, Hector. It was good. But it makes sense, especially when you talked about tracking, how many hours per week were actually saved doing this and using this tool, and then how many dollars did that translate to? How many dollars saved? Great stuff that I would have never thought of. So good.
Yeah. It's interesting, but we always think about the exciting stuff, right? The shiny object. Oh, look at the cool thing I'm doing. Well, yeah, that's awesome, but what's the return on that? What did it
Right.
actually solve? And did you do it like legally? Did you make sure that you didn't expose your company to some kind of lawsuit?
Yeah.
All those things are very important so that we don't just go chasing shiny objects and don't have boundaries within to play in. And worse, is if you introduce the tool to your company and everybody's running with the same mindset and there's no framework. That's when you expose yourself times X amount of employees potentially.
Yeah.
So
I
that's,
loved how you talked about, I loved how you talked about, uh, um, if, and I'm going to butcher it, but if you don't want a certain output to be ever, seen or something by a competitor, don't use it. Don't use the, does it
yeah,
make sense
yeah,
what I'm bringing
yeah,
up? Can you just touch on that a little bit
absolutely. Right.
again?
If it essentially it's one saying that I actually really enjoy that someone says in our office all the time, and it always like sticks with me. And this individual calls it like the newspaper test, right? And it's like, don't do this, or if the outcome ends up on the newspaper, first front page, what is it going to say? How are you going to feel about that article if it lands in the newspaper? And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, like that makes total sense.
Total sense. Yeah. And what is, can you just, I'm sorry, confirm, what is the shadow AI?
Yeah, shadow AI is essentially the opposite of AI productivity, is people, going on their own accord, doing their own projects, wasting time, being inefficient. Essentially, you're running two at the same time, and people think they're being productive, but you're running two. And so there's no real gain.
Okay. Got it. Thank you so much for that.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Inner Circle. If something in today's conversation resonated, inspired you, or gave you a breakthrough, please share it with someone you care about. The right idea at the right time can change someone's business and their life. So make sure you follow the show, leave a review, and stay connected with us, because this community is built on relationships, real support, and real growth together. Remember that clarity means nothing without action. So choose one insight from today, put it into motion this week, and notice the shift. Thank you for being part of this journey, for showing up for your growth, and for being part of the Inner Circle community. See you in the next episode, and let's keep growing together.